recruit a lot of people again. And I guess now I would say if we model the waves, we're a bit in a down time at the moment, where we see that many companies are not recruiting as many positions as they have been doing a year ago. And so we want to talk about the role of CRM in especially those situations. So, and for this, I'm very happy to have Sven sitting next to me, as he has done a lot of research with Fosway, particularly on this topic. And maybe before we start with our presentation, after also we've been introducing ourselves, we would be interested to also get a better understanding of the audience. So maybe we can start with a short poll, because we would like to get an understanding about, let's say, how to which extent you have already been implementing a candidate relationship management system within your organization. So if you could answer the poll, which is appearing, would be great if we could get your answers on this. And maybe, Chloe, maybe you can then also share the answers when they are available.
I think I can actually see them as they move, Carl, in this wonderful tool that we're using for the webinar. So.
Okay, then you can see more than I can.
Should I talk a little bit about it? Would it be useful?
Please.
So the question was, do you already use a CRM, so a candidate relationship management system, in your company? And it is currently a majority is saying yes, 45%, and 36% are saying no, not yet. And oh no, it is changing. 50%, 54 are saying yes. Oh my God. And 31% now are saying no. And these are the live readings, right? And 15% say no, but they have plans to do something in the coming months or years. So I think that is now even getting higher on the yes, but maybe it's good if we share the final poll results after the webinar with the participants.
For sure, we will do this. And also, that being said, of course, we will also cover interesting content, not only for the people who have been introducing a CRM already. We will also cover some interesting content for people who are not using it, or people who are also planning it. So it will be interesting for all of you. So I propose to get started, Sven, and we wanted to, I would say, start a bit with I would say, look on the market. And so, Sven, maybe, you could start with the first part of our presentation.
Yeah, absolutely. So we at Fosway do, for 6-7 years now, an annual survey that looks at the realities of HR leaders, a survey that looks at the realities of TA leaders, and a survey that looks at the realities of learning leaders. So we go very, very deep into the different silos, if you like, within HR as well, but also have a broader view from across HR. So, and I think it's an interesting time and situation. And I guess from like in the first section, maybe let's look at what people are telling us across EMEA. This is an EMEA-wide survey. About their challenges, about their business challenges, their HR priorities, and so on. And then how does that link to candidate relationship management? How does that link to recruit proactively, to build a candidate pipeline, and so on? And I think, definitely also, of course, interested in your views, because obviously CleverConnect is a significant vendor in the market. And from that perspective, I think we can make this very conversational as well. In terms of Fosway, maybe one word or two. If you are not familiar with the company, we are a boutique analyst firm in the market since 1996, and we provide analyst and advisory services to European and international headquarter companies, independent vendor research and market commentary. We help companies make better HR buying decisions and faster. Sometimes those take very long, and basically we are obviously very savvy on the market and help companies to accelerate and de-risk their decisions.
Yes, as there's already a first question popping up, just to clarify, are we sharing the stack after the call? Yes, we will. And also, when you have questions during our presentation, please feel free to use the questions tab, and we will make sure that we answer all the questions that you have during this presentation.
Great, thank you, Carl. So I guess from an agendas perspective, we would want to look at these economic challenges first, then talk a little bit about the strategic advantages of CRM, how you implement it for long-term success, and how you can overcome skill shortages with it, I think is an important topic, as we will see on the next couple of slides. The research that we are running is, as I said, pan-European, so it has a lot of participants from Germany, France, UK, also internationally from the US, APAC maybe a little bit less, but typically it's companies with more than 1,000 employees. It is a bit more weighted towards very large companies with more than 20,000 employees, and has about 300, 400 respondents year on year. And it's like the 6th or 7th time, if I remember correctly, that we are running this. So quite some time. We can actually look at the past years as well. And I think the interesting one for 2 years is now that the availability of skills is actually the #1 business challenge, right? So it always used to be about increasing organizational performance and profitability. That was always #1. But now we are actually for 2 years seeing that skills and the availability of those skills is becoming increasingly a problem after the pandemic. You know, there has been a lot of shifts for many industries, and those industries, I think, still haven't recovered. But also we're obviously seeing a lot of demand for new digital skills. AI is obviously a big topic as well in the market. So companies are struggling to find skills. And at the same time, now that the economy is actually, you know, turning or having more headwinds, I think Germany, as you know, is in a recession. It's not only going to be a technical recession, it's a real recession. France is likely not moving into a recession. UK is moving a bit sideways, you know, so the big countries in Europe are still growing slowly with the exception of Germany maybe. But there's a lot of economic uncertainty in the market because of obviously geopolitical disruption and elections this year. So a lot of things to be aware about, and companies need to plan out more scenarios about the future and you know, a good case, a bad case, and a worst case, and an excellent case maybe. And what many actually are finding is that they have also to really take their operational costs under scrutiny. So 40% roughly are saying we need to reduce operational costs this year. And this is a major challenge. And also the impact of automation and AI is becoming more of a challenge for us. So from, I think, that perspective, if you combine the two, it's a bit schizophrenic, right? On the one hand, if people need to manage operational costs, you would think they are laying off people. But then on why is availability of skills #1? It's a bit of a paradox situation, really, is it? So, but this is really that, of course, many industries, there is a shortage of labor, there's a shortage of people in some countries. Employment rates, employment levels are actually really high across the 3 countries that I've mentioned, but also in other countries. And it is definitely something where organizations are still looking for talent, for the right talents that make them future ready, future proof. And I think it is an important point to know, however, that it is no longer as shiny and glorious as it was maybe during the Great Resignation after the pandemic, where everybody was kind of able to find maybe some new talent. Carl, is that what you are seeing a little bit as well, or what do you see?
Yes. No, absolutely. I can confirm what we see talking to many customers, that while increasing the cost side, still getting positions backfilled remains a big challenge. And obviously also due to the, I would say, demographic development. I mean, we also need to see, although maybe companies are not growing, there's a lot of people who are stepping out of the labor market. And so this is also, for many companies, a huge challenge that they have, very significant amount of employees leaving the organization within the next 5 years. And so they need to be ready to replace them at time.
Yeah, good. Thank you for sharing that. If we move on, then we also asked, what are your top priorities as an HR organization? And you can see the top things that were mentioned are mostly around internal development, skills development, upskilling, reskilling. So making sure that your existing workforce is getting the training they need, is getting the skills, the future skills that they need to be successful in, this new digital AI-driven world, maybe. I think at the bottom of the list, and we have highlighted this here a little bit with this red box, you can see that the effectiveness of recruiting is, while it is not the highest, it is still for 20% of organizations a top priority, right? So becoming more effective in recruiting, while it is maybe not the most or the biggest priority overall, it is still a significant priority for every fifth organization, if you like, and enhancing and building that talent pipeline is not far behind. So I think definitely we see that there are maybe some other fires that companies have to put out around, HR becoming a strategic business partner, the line managers asking, can you help us with developing more workforce planning scenarios? What if the economic situation went really badly? What if it was okay? What if it is picking up again? So their HR is coming in as this strategic partner and counselor, and it is a top priority, of course. But also there is definitely still this need to improve leadership and management. So a lot of those topics that we have seen during the pandemic are also still up there. So I think from that perspective, do recruiters now have to be very worried that they are no longer relevant? I don't think so. As we know, this is always happening like in waves. And from my experience, I mean, I've been working in the industry now for more than, Carl, you weren't probably even born. So it is really something where we see, if it's moving in waves, recruiting teams always have an opportunity to do some strategic work. If you are in the middle of hiring frenzy, if you need to fill positions at any cost very, very quickly, and you are getting very big pressures from your line managers, you don't have a lot of time to focus on strategic topics. You don't change the tires or the engine in a car that is driving at 200 kilometers per hour on the Autobahn, right? You have to have a maintenance window. You have to sit down and think, what should your future recruitment processes and your future recruiting strategies look like? So from that perspective, I think it is an ideal moment actually for recruiters to look at those kind of questions and think about, okay, how can they actually react better to the availability of skills crisis? How can they get a competitive advantage? We will share a few interesting insights later as well, but also maybe how can you adopt AI? How can you automate things a little bit more? How can you, develop the templates that you need, the processes that you need to be ready for the future? So I think it is a unique moment in time for recruiting teams also to look at this. Carl, any comments maybe from your side on this?
Fully agree.
Okay. Well, that is a good comment, of course. Thank you very much for the confirmation. I think it's really important that recruitment has to behave a bit anti-cyclical, right? You always need to use those down times. And in the States, it's a bit more difficult maybe because it's easier for American headquarter companies to let go of recruiters and people. Here in Europe, this is obviously widely different. And so actually preparing for this next wave of recruitment is really, really important. And we also know, if we look at then maybe the next slide, we are also asking, about the economic situation? What about your HR budgets? What about where are you investing? And there we can see, of course, and you will feel this, many of you might feel this in the audience perhaps as well, that the IT department has to obviously make sure that that the budget is always like shrinking by 3% or whatever it might be. So definitely there is more pressure on HR budgets for 2024. 30% say significantly more. And from that perspective, I think we see that many organizations have to do a better job in submitting their business cases if they want to invest. But we also see at the same time, and this is the slide on the right side, that 63% are actually investing more in HR technology and innovation. Over the last 2 years after the pandemic, a lot of organizations actually have invested more in HR, also in HR headcount. As you can see, this is now a little bit more split. So in the previous years, it was much more organizations that increased their headcount. Now we have 25% of organizations who are also looking to decrease their headcount. But the development of HR skills and expertise is what the vast majority of companies are continuing to invest in, and even more are investing in technology. So it is about efficiency. It is about, getting away from those paper and pencil processes. I mean, we are in the year 2024. They still exist in some companies, in some pockets. The pandemic obviously has brought people up to a new level, but certainly the journey is not finished, and there's always room to improve and to find efficiencies. And I think from that perspective, these are really some interesting numbers.
Absolutely.
And then we've also asked, okay, then where do you want to invest and when? So a little bit similar, like the question you asked at the beginning, or we asked at the beginning of the webinar. We see that actually, when you look at the areas that companies want to invest in, I've highlighted recruiting and talent acquisition here again, and onboarding as well. You see that actually a lot of organizations are looking to increase their investment in talent acquisition and internal talent mobility as well. So those things maybe go hand in hand nowadays. But also, it is amongst those areas where they are going to make changes across the next 2 years. So it is actually, from a priority perspective, an area similar to what we said. It seems that companies are behaving a little bit anti-cyclical and are actually looking to invest in their recruitment solutions while there is maybe not as much activity on the, if you like, on the front line. And so I think from that perspective, those numbers are, again, more pan-European, and certainly, but Karl, maybe you have some insights to share there as well on this one.
Well, I think it's there. From what I see, there are 2 drivers for this. One driver is mainly opportunity driven. I think as part of the rise of AI, there are new opportunities, and of course, many companies are trying to capture those efficiency gains that are available due to a new technology which is emerging. So I think this is one main driver, which is especially also targeting recruiting. And the other one is more related to the fact that you have been proposing before, Sven. When is the right time to invest into technology? Is it when you go 200 kilometers per hour on the Autobahn? Or is it when maybe there's a bit less of pressure coming on really filling positions? And I think the smart organizations are, finding that right time window to now, set them up for the future and make sure that, because we all know, if you model all the demographic changes, and when the economy is going up, there will be a very, very big hiring demand. And so I think companies need to get ready for this. And the people who have realized this, or the companies who have realized this, are now investing into HR technology.
Yeah, so, and I think also what we don't have this on the slide, but it's certainly something where we also have some data points around the pressure to consolidate, to get more on a single platform is increasing. So in the past, maybe companies have invested in what we call one-trick ponies or specialists that do like one thing maybe, but now they actually want more things on a platform. So if you have a CRM system, maybe you can have some additional processes on it as well. And maybe you can consolidate that a little bit. So this is, I think, really an important driver also for the IT, for many initiatives that are driven by the IT. But I think there's always, and particularly in Europe, there's still a conflict between should you go like best of breed and pick a solution that, you know, where you get from the provider a state-of-the-art solution with great usability, with a great candidate experience, with a great, you know, user experience for employees and managers and recruiters, and also how does it fit in your overall ecosystem, right? So is it really well integrated? So those things are becoming more and more important, and organizations are looking at that quite a lot. But when we ask what
Sorry, Sven, there's one question on the
yes.
data. In terms of number of companies, size of companies, where they're headquartered, and so on, in terms of the
yes.
data
So yeah, definitely can answer that. So it is organizations with more than 1,000 employees. The headquarter is for 75% of the companies is in EMEA, so predominantly in UK, Germany, and France are the main regions within it. And there is maybe a slighter weight to companies who are a little bit bigger than 1,000 even, right? So we've the survey looks at more companies at the larger end of the spectrum, okay? There are maybe some 10-20% where we have also surveyed for smaller companies who are maybe slightly below 1,000 or whatever, yeah? But I can share the statistics when you send the deck. I can provide more details on that if that is useful. Yeah. So I think what we can then maybe look at next is actually how is the ecosystem, what strategies are companies employing when they look at talent acquisition? And we can see a big variety of strategies, and they are all successful. So there is no single one strategy that we could kind of see as being the best strategy. So we cannot see that there's like, if you have it all in your HCM suite, that then the companies are happiest and are performing the best. That is not the case. We can also not say that if you have a lot of best of breed solutions, that you then have the best solution, right? So all of these strategies, companies can be really successful with. It certainly depends on, you know, the type of organization and the size of organization. There is still, I guess, a significant proportion of companies, usually those are more at the smaller end of the spectrum, who don't yet have a digital talent acquisition solution. I mean, in times of GDPR, this is probably almost a no-go. But only for very small companies it is possible. But most of them actually have a bit of an ecosystem. And I think how do you evolve the ecosystem as a company is what we see. We get a lot of questions from companies saying, okay, we have this and this and this, and how can we evolve this forward? And how can we make the best mix of solutions moving forward? On average, talent acquisition has more than 11 or 12 integrations, even for a mid-sized company. So it has always been an ecosystem, and this one-size-fits-all solution really doesn't exist. It is always an ecosystem of solution. This is, I think, really, really important, you know, to note. And this is not only true, obviously, in Europe, but also internationally for US headquartered companies or companies headquartered in Asia Pacific. So basically, to summarize, talent acquisition is, you know, a critical part in your modern HR technology ecosystem. And you can have maybe you have some butterflies and you have some birds and you have some, plants and trees in your ecosystem, right? and these are different vendor names. And then maybe you have an hawk who can pick up another system that you can then consolidate, right? So this is the trend that I talked about. What is going to happen with systems consolidation? This is your IT department trying to consolidate these systems a little bit more and put more functional modules around the core, right? So this is always an important evaluation for HR departments, talent acquisition leaders today. And we have already mentioned it. I have the drawing skills of a 3-year-old. So I've put in a big gray elephant. The big elephant in the room is obviously AI. So how do organizations infuse AI into talent acquisition? How do they infuse it into the HR technology ecosystem? And currently we are running obviously some additional studies around this particular topic. And in our survey, we had, I think, one interesting question for talent acquisition, which I would like to share, which looks at the areas in which companies have already started to use AI in their talent acquisition solutions. And you can see that overall, about 50% of the companies have not looked at it yet, really. But we are also seeing that there's more demand and more interest in these solutions. I mean, for 1 year, a bit more now, AI is, in the main news. Everybody is talking about generative AI, ChatGPT, and those kind of technologies. But in recruitment, it has already been a reality for many, many years that you have used it for maybe matching, interview scheduling, and companies have found it actually quite difficult to implement. So particularly in Europe, you need to obviously have a lot of consideration around fairness, around the ethical use of AI. So I think this is really an important conversation. But I think it is also something to keep in mind that AI can also help you with automating a lot, right? So it can help you to automate your processes. It can help you to accelerate your processes. Although that is maybe not the area that is currently getting the biggest focus so far. Carl, maybe any observations or comments from your side on this one?
No, I think we can move on with the. I'm just also looking a bit at time. So.
Yeah, no, of course. Let's move on. So then, I guess, why is CRM important to look at that now, right? We know that employee experience is continuing to be a driver for an organization's future success. So it's obviously data quality and analytics that organizations are focusing on, but they are almost all 60% say employee experience is really important. And this is about making things simpler, creating better work experience, making employees more successful. It is not necessarily about a user interface in a software solution where you have 6 clicks instead of 8, or 2 clicks instead of 5, or something like this. This does play a role, but it is certainly more the outcomes that it generates, more how well an employee is represented, how well they are aligned with the strategy, and how easy do they find it to interact with the organizations, and how successful can they be in the organization? And from that perspective, I think we have also asked, like, what are maybe some of the things that you are going to stop in the year ahead, or what are some of the things that you're going to slow down a little bit in the year ahead? And this is your slide for recruiters. This is your target market that you can really drill into, right? There are 25, 26, 24, 29, 31% of companies, so in that range between 25 and 30, who are making really compromises on their employer value proposition, who say, oh, we can't be as competitive with our salary. And you know how much the salaries are rising at the moment. They can't give out the salary increases. They have to dial back on flexible working. They are pulling people back into the office. They are making compromises on how they look at work-life balance, and 25% almost reduce or stop or slow the benefits and perks programs. So if I was an employee, and I was looking at the cost of my basket in the supermarket, and I don't get a raise, maybe not currently in the current economic climate where everything is really, dangerous to switch because I'm in probation period and I might be unemployed in 6 months. But if the situation improves, I am really quickly going to leave. And this is similar to what we had during the COVID pandemic, where people were like, oh, no, I can't change now. But once you didn't have to wear the mask anymore, they were really like looking where the grass was much greener. And I mean, were they finding it is another question, but certainly there were a lot of more people in the market. So this is really a great risk for those 25 to 30% of companies that have to make these compromises. It's economic pressures that force them to make those compromises. And this is your opportunity space as a recruiter to tip in to that potential right now and to build the relationships to those maybe unhappy employees who, are maybe kind of thinking, I would really like to go on holiday this year, but I didn't get the raise. I don't know what to do, right? So can I find a job that is a bit higher paying, or can I find a job where I can work a bit more from home or whatever? So those kind of things are really important to employees as well. So I think that is really a strong reason to look at building out those relationships now. And I think from that perspective, here is another statistic. It's not causally related, but I think it actually makes a lot of sense. If you think about it, we see that candidate relationship management is a strong area of investment. It's actually the top in-demand area from talent acquisition platforms. So talent acquisition platforms could be like a talent acquisition suite, or it could be just some of the modules. And we basically have asked for the different components within this question. And candidate relationship management came out first. So this ability to connect to candidates early, to drive talent pipeline is actually an important one. Similarly, of course, candidate experience, revamping the career side is another area where a lot of companies are investing in, as well as onboarding, making those people more productive earlier. And also technology can now do, some amazing things around orchestrating the workflows across the different departments and making sure there's more social engagement. Still, a lot of people do work remotely or half from office and half maybe from home. So you have a need to manage these processes more digitally. So I think from that perspective, those numbers do make a lot of sense. Carl, any maybe comments from your side on this?
Yes, I think it's a very obvious reason to invest into a CRM because, like, I think the connection of what you were mentioning before is very obvious. That right now, I think it's quite difficult to convince people to change jobs because due to the high uncertainty on the job market. But candidates remember. So I think when you are now building a good relationship, and I think the focus is really on relationship, what we will also cover on the next slide. I think then you have very good chances that in the moment where the economy is recovering, we will see that many candidates are then maybe taking the opportunity to switch from one employer to another.
And sometimes it's not, sending them. I mean, of course, you need to be able to talk to them and communicate to them via email and other channels. But I think the personal contact is really an area that they will appreciate and value a lot. So really building out those personal relationships between recruiters. Again, you have maybe more time, but and at the same time, you need a system of record then to kind of maintain what you discussed, and that you have been in touch with people, and that you can then also consider them and invite them maybe if the opportunity comes a little bit, more, if you actually have a vacant position that you can advertise for, right? So then certainly that is.
I think when we move to the next slide, I think that's a nice bridge to take, because what we see across many companies is that they want to build a relationship, but they don't really know how. So often it's not a matter of tooling. It's often more a matter of strategy and I would say setting up the right communication channels with candidates to actually build those relationships and nurture the candidates. And I think my recommendation for many organizations is actually to map a bit, what are the type of candidates we want to reach, maybe segment them by priority. Some organizations go as far as that they already have kind of a marketing funnel where they say, for candidates who are, later stage in the funnel, you need to, handle them with a higher priority than the ones who are early in the funnel. And of course, then segmented from one to many, one to few, and one-to-one communication. And there are a lot of, I would say there's a toolbox with a lot of different measures that you can take as an organization. I would say the typical low-hanging fruits are obviously a career newsletter. Doesn't cost a lot to send it out, and but still is providing value to many candidates. But obviously it's a bit less personalized, but can go up to obviously taking the telephone, reaching out to candidates personally, maybe setting up meetings with the hiring manager or with a member of the board. So there can be many opportunities, obviously depending on the type of profile that you want to recruit. And definitely worth to come up with a strategy, because it's not that complex, but still many companies are struggling to implement an according strategy and come up with a content plan. Typical things that I also like to see is like a bit those day in the life formats that you can put on your career site, that you can also then put into the newsletter and connect it with relevant job offers to show a bit behind the curtain scenes, what can actually be expected of a certain job profile. So I think there are many ways how you can actually engage with candidates. I don't know what you see, Sven, but
yeah, those things are definitely all have to be on the menu, right? You, as I said, the most valuable interaction point is obviously a personal contact and a personal relationship, but certainly that doesn't scale across a large, pool of candidates, and so you have to be obviously selective about it, but you can certainly. Think of it as the funnel, right? And you have to have different stages in the funnel. And this is probably also something to have that model, and for organizations to think about how they, convert people from those stages across into the funnel by, different geographies or different roles, I think is really important. So I think from that perspective, those instruments are all really good and important. There's different costs associated with it. Again, maybe there are, your ability to go to recruitment fairs at the moment is not, huge. But maybe in half a year or in September, this will change, or maybe early next year. So then if you have a tool that can help you manage that really very professionally, actually prepares you now for that next wave of hiring that is going to come for sure. Okay.
Exactly.
So, what are the best practices? Obviously, for then integrating CRM into your recruitment process. And this is an interesting one as well, right? Because, we have asked also what have you been using in your ecosystem? So just as we did maybe at the beginning, we asked what are companies using, and then actually how successful has it been in supporting your organization? And I wanted just to highlight that for candidate relationship management systems in particular, there is a rate of where it has actually been for quite a number of companies a little bit unsuccessful, right? So really important is that you find a partner who knows what they are doing, who can help you, because for many organizations, this means you have to shift from like posting job ads and, this post and pray, the famous post and pray recruitment. And you have to shift to obviously more modern ways of doing it, to reach out more proactively, to have a bit of a marketing machine, if you like, in the background that can actually help you to automate and advance people through the pipeline. And you have to have a strong function at the end of the funnel before you actually then convert it into specific applicants, where you then have this maybe a more personalized layer and opportunity of contact. So I think from that perspective, many companies have tried it, just implemented a system and really didn't make the organizational changes that they needed to make to get it to work. And this is in different, obviously, segments of the markets, maybe a little bit differently. And because particularly in like mid-market or smaller organizations, with not a big recruitment team or whatever, you have to be very thoughtful about what you do, where you invest, and how you drive those automations forward and how you can leverage that. And for that, you need a partner who can provide you with those best practices. So I think this is really quite an important chart from my perspective, right? Because there are some mixed results in the market, and you sometimes see, oh no, we haven't had really that much success with it. But then if you dive deeper, the reasons are mostly organizational in nature, and the ability to make that change and to build those, also the teams with the different skills that you maybe need than for your classical recruitment, where you then select and obviously move people through the process, through interview stages and so on. Carl, maybe from your side, obviously CleverConnect is in the...
Yeah, I mean, we're in many spaces, right? In the career side space, in the employee referral space, in the CRM space, recruitment marketing space. So I mean, we cover a lot of those boxes mentioned here. But I think one main driver where you can see why in some cases it has been the most successful, and I would say in quite a few cases it's actually been the most successful one, and in others it has been quite unsuccessful. I think one of the reasons for this is that it requires a good implementation strategy. It's same with referral, by the way, right? If you just, for instance, introduce a referral program without a communication strategy, it doesn't have a high likelihood to succeed. And I think that's what companies need to keep in mind, that they are implementing it the right way. So what I would like to cover is, I would say, 3 simple steps to turn your CRM into a competitive advantage and make it successful and get, I would say, more of the red area into the green area. And to be very frank, it's not rocket science. I think those are 3 very simple steps that you just need to keep in mind. So step 1, I think a very obvious one, is you need to build your talent community. And what many companies underestimate is how many sources they actually have for talent that they don't use. So many companies are still in that mindset of, candidates just can apply for a job or they cannot apply, and they don't really make an effort to capture all the people who visit their career site, who they talk to on events, who they, reach out on LinkedIn. I mean, those are all relevant connections that companies are building. So typical sources I would like to highlight here, and this list is not exhaustive, is the career site. Have you thought about making sure that when candidates don't find the right job, you still make sure that they can, register for a newsletter or register for a talent pool to keep updated about relevant job offers? When you don't have marketing positions, I'm sure there will be open marketing positions in the future. And so you should make sure to still capture marketing candidates when they already made this progress to go to your career site. Second best candidates. Many companies are also not making a great use of second best candidates, but you have often a lot of candidates in your application process. You hire this one candidate, but you don't have a second position open. But 3 months or 6 months later, it's a different situation. But then many companies again start from the beginning and start to post job ads, etc. Instead of looking who are the people who have actually been in the final stages, and maybe we can retarget some of them. Also, the people, by the way, where they have maybe decided to not choose you as an employer, but even those people are still in probation period, right? And so often they have then made a choice, but they find out, oh, maybe it was not the right choice. Very important to stay in contact with those type of profiles and also define the right strategy for second best candidates. Same for active sourcing. Many companies misuse it in a way that they reach out to many candidates on LinkedIn and just ask them to apply for an open position. I mean, that's a big big luck when you approach the candidate exactly in the right moment and he's willing, or he or she is willing to apply. So it's really about capturing that right window of opportunity and building a relationship over time, so that once you capture that window of opportunity where candidates are willing to actually change jobs, you are there and you're available for that job. Recruiting events, another good example. I think many companies just show up at an event without really having a clear strategy, setting up meetings, inviting candidates to that event, following up with it, and really guiding them through the process. Definitely can be improved with referrals as well. Many companies just allow employees to share a job and that they can apply for this job, but it's also very interesting to do it the other way around and maybe make recommendations for a pool. So using the knowledge of your employees to actually fill your talent pools and ask for recommendations. Who are the best salespeople they know? Who are the best tech profiles they know? And then fill those profiles, those talent pools with relevant profiles. Alumni, a bit like second best, but it's also people who have left the organization, very interesting boomerang hires. You can use registration forms in all type of situations. You can import them from your ATS, from LinkedIn, from Excel files. So like I said, this list is not exhaustive. One thing I would even add is many organizations now also even go one step further, that they have type of gated content that they use on social media channels like LinkedIn or Facebook. And they then try to capture profiles. So not targeting, not publishing a job, but advertising more, a certain job profile, and then asking to register on a specific landing page. So we see that the market is switching more and more to, I would say, using a marketing approach. And that's, I think, step one, that you don't need to take all of it, but just to remember that there are many sources which don't cost a lot of resources and don't take a lot of effort, but you just need to do it. So what I always was planning also was to show you a bit how this could also be implemented. And so I have, I want to show you how at CleverConnect you can then also set it up in your company. So let's say, for instance, you are planning an event, because like I mentioned, this is one of the things that companies don't do right. It starts with a form at CleverConnect. You set up a registration form. We now took the Unleash event where we have been present as CleverConnect. You prepare a form. You just take the link, and then you can very easily build a landing page where you put that link inside. You can brand it according to your CI/CD to also make it a bit more appealing for the candidates, and that candidates can very find it appealing to register. You can choose from different templates, and that's how simple you can set up a landing page for events where candidates can then apply for and leave their data. And the great thing is that when you have those landing pages, obviously you can market it across many different channels. Typically, you can use a QR code that you can post in flyers on your cards, that you can also put on posters. And then those candidates can very easily register for the event, leave their data within the system. And then you have the data in the system, and you can do the meeting appointments, you can do the follow-up, but then you can really convert those candidates you collect into applicants over time. So that's an example. Yes?
Maybe very quickly, there was an important little tick box there which said, I consent, right? So
yeah.
This, I think, is the thing that is really important, to find also a partner in Europe who can do this in a GDPR compliant way, right? So having that tick box, having that consent, because it's a different purpose, right? It's not, they're not applying to a specific position. They are consenting for their data to be tracked, somewhat differently for a different purpose. So you need to have that consent, and you need a provider who can actually, give you those options in a way that you are not like having to pay huge amounts of fines if, as the GDPR regulation foresees, right? So from that perspective, I think this is what you didn't mention it, and with all the like different sources you had on there, I would also say it is really important to make sure that all the sources that you use are actually also that you have make sure that you have the consent of the person. And so having a way or a tool that actually can ask the candidate to provide that consent to you electronically and then stores it and so on, blah blah blah, all the things that follow it, I think is also really important. And we see this, from US vendors, it's always a bit like, I mean, they're getting better at it, but it's certainly something where, a European background is still a good thing to have.
Exactly. A very good point. And like you said, if you also have them in Excel, I think that's the worst thing, because that's obviously not GDPR compliant. And also a big differentiator towards the ATS, because what's always relevant is the use of the data. If you just ask for the use for an application, you typically have to delete the data for the purpose of 6 to 9 months. I would say that's what the majority of companies are doing. If you say the purpose is to build a relationship long time, the use of the data has changed. And so the majority of customers is more than, renewing the consent every 2 years, and you can work with the data for a lot longer time. So going back, step 1, like I said, capture the data. Step 2 is then engaging your talent community. And I think there you need to keep in mind that every candidate has his own non-linear journey. So the difficulty very often is to not nurture candidates with a one-size-fits-all approach. But the great thing is that with good CRM technology, you can make sure that you personalize the automation a lot. And so you can use triggers. So what I mean by trigger is like an event is happening. Then, you can use certain criteria. Let's say, if someone's birthday date is the date today, then we want to send out a personalized birthday email. It's like a very simple automation rule with a trigger and an event. But there are many triggers that you can use to have a personalized communication. When someone is submitting a form but has not left his CV, you can send out an email asking, first of all, saying thank you for leaving the data, but asking to also upload the CV in the second stage. And there are many of those triggers that you can use to I would say set up automatic nurturing emails. Also a bit combining with what we have been showing previously, the toolbox with the different communication channels, that you can ensure that you can, in certain situations, you maybe send out an email. In other situations, it's maybe a WhatsApp or SMS that the candidate receives. So this is also something where I would say good technology, like the CRM, also from CleverConnect, is allowing the organizations to automate a lot of things, that it's not manually, but also give some freedom in terms of the channels they want to use to engage with candidates. And also here, I want to show you a very simple example how this can be done to make it more explainable. So also here, you can create a talent campaign that you set up. Here you have different options. You can use one of the templates that we provide, or you can just implement your own HTML code in there. But what's very important within the software, you don't need to have special programming skills. So everything we set up in CleverConnect is for HR departments, not for IT departments, so you can set it up yourselves. And then this is what I meant. You can work with if and then functions. So in this case, you could say if a talent form has been submitted, let's say for the Unleash event that we were just providing, and this is a person from marketing, we directly want to send out this person a marketing job newsletter, right? So that it's very targeted. There's a very simple automation rule, but obviously has a big impact because it allows us to be a lot more personalized. And that way we can set up many different rules and make sure that we personalize with relevant candidates at scale. Going back to the third event. So that's the final step. So we have now captured the data, we have nurtured the candidates, and then obviously the step 3 is to capture the value. And that's what many companies need to keep in mind. The value creation is not that I have a talent in the pool or that I engage with a candidate. The value creation really takes place when this person is landing in the application funnel and when I convert this candidate into an employee. And this is obviously where matching can help out a lot. And that's also how we always envision actually talent acquisition. You have an open job. You look in your CRM, who is a good match for that open job? It can be a candidate, but also what Sven was mentioning, it can also be an employee sometimes. So you can also combine those two worlds of existing employees and candidates, and then you can very easily reach out to the right candidate in a very targeted and personalized manner. And so to finish my presentation, I want to, make also this in a short demo how this can work. So let's say you have a certain job that you want to market. Let's say the chief marketing officer. So the first thing you do is you build a pool for this role you want to fill. And you can then, for instance, share it with the different hiring managers who are involved, and you can already work on that on that list. But the great thing, what is then happening is once you then put the job to that pool, you can very easily see who of the candidates you have added to the pool are actually matching to the job offer that you have posted. So when you now go on the head of marketing profile, you can see, okay, those are candidates with the good match, and you can also understand why are they a good match in terms of the geography they are living in, or certain skills that are required. So you then have a good matching, and you can. Some companies also take things like the engagement of candidates into account, so that they are better in reaching out to the right candidates. So yeah, just as a recap, 3 simple steps. Capture the data, engage with candidates, and then capture the value by reaching out to the people at the right time. 2 minutes left, Sven.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. I guess we have also published or are publishing a paper that talks about this topic. Some of the things we have already discussed around adopting a counter-cyclical strategy, enhancing your employer value proposition, but also, this is all now going to be an AI-driven recruitment landscape, right? These match scores, and oftentimes there's AI used to do this, and so, but people still want to be treated as human beings, right? We don't want all to be interviewed by AI avatars. I don't think this is the, there is technology that would allow that now, but is that really the experience you want to provide to the candidates, or are you a personable, an approachable organization, and do you value actual human relationships? I think is really a very important point also during, even still after the pandemic, people want to feel the connection to the organization that they work for. And from that perspective, I think this is maybe also an opportunity to look at that paper. And yeah, with that, maybe some additional questions from the chat.
Yes, we have officially 1 more minute, but I think unofficially we can maybe even make it another 5, depending on how many questions you have. So yes, the question tab is open, and in case you don't have question, thank you for your participation, and obviously we will send you the slides and also recording afterwards. And yeah, if you have additional questions, feel free to ask them now. We are here for the remaining minutes. So maybe, Sven, we give people some short time.
Let's give them
maybe they're longer or 2. All right.
But, we've been talking a lot now, so let's see.
But yeah, looks like everything has been covered. So Sven, I also want to say thanks a lot to you for co-hosting this webinar with me. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Carl. It was, yes.
Interesting data from Fosway, looking forward to stay in touch on those topics,
yes,
and also see whether our look into the future will really happen. That we see the Great Resignation Part 2 once the economy is picking up again.
Yes, will be interesting to see how it plays out, right? And thank you very much for having me, Carl, and wishing everybody a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.